afternoon and good evening. Welcome to TFH, the Full 100. This is where the truth is told, as you know. Now, today is Thursday, the 14th of May, and it's nearly the weekend again. I didn't put a video out yesterday. I had a bit of a sore throat and a slight headache, but I can assure you it's not the virus. It's not coronavirus. I'm good. I feel better, much better today. So guys, today, really, we're going to be remembering the dead, and I'm going to be bringing you some updates on the US, the UK, Russia as well, and as well as a couple of new hotspots that are now starting to show up on the radar. Okay, so guys, without further ado, let's get to it. I'm going to be playing, guys, is a remembrance of those many thousands who have passed. This is only a few of them, but I don't want to keep talking numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers every day without every so often, guys, bringing you real human beings who those numbers amount to. Okay, so guys, just take a look at these videos.
76,000 Americans lost to coronavirus. Gerald Listen was the principal of Eastside High School in Paterson, New Jersey since 2017. Governor Phil Murphy called him a beloved, respected presence and a role model. The 46-year-old leaves behind a wife and two daughters. 89-year-old Jimmy Glenn belonged to a vanishing New York breed. He was a former boxing trainer and bar owner. After a brief career in the ring, Glenn became a cornerman, working in the 70s for heavyweight legend Floyd Patterson. And then for nearly 50 years, he ran a Times Square dive bar called Jimmy's Corner. He died on Thursday. World War II vet Daniel Zane died of coronavirus just 2 days after he lost his wife of 71 years, Valerie. Family members say Zane once dashed across a field under enemy fire to give first aid to another soldier. He met his future wife sailing on a blind date. Family members say it was love at first sight for Daniel. Valerie, though, made him wait. They were married 3 years later.
Lost to coronavirus. Maria Lopez worked as a registered nurse for 20 years. She was supposed to retire at the end of April, but she got sick before she could retire. A colleague said that a nurse's attitude is to help, and Maria exemplified that. Dr. Alice Gulati was a psychiatrist, university professor, and civil rights activist. She was one of the nation's premier voices on substance abuse, serving in the Nixon, Ford, and Carter administrations. The president of Howard University honored Dr. Gulati's unparalleled service to the school, noting her role in educating and training thousands of physicians working today. Rose Liberto was a mother, nurse, and cancer survivor. Rose knew she was at a higher risk from the coronavirus, but she was determined to continue helping patients, despite protests from her family. Her daughter, Jennifer, said her mom was a fierce warrior who sacrificed herself to save lives in this truly awful pandemic. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, guys. You know, I just thought I'd start the show just to remind us that every statistic that we hear, every time you hear one person's died today or 233 died today, that's what you're looking at. People just like them, guys. Guys, let me begin the show by saying that I mentioned to you guys the other day that you can see the UK has split, gone their separate ways on this one. The right-wing English Parliament has gone left, as in off course. And the rest of the UK separating from England and saying, no, you just, you know, I mean, what's the name? Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland. You can hear her in a speech say, don't watch what's going on in England. They're not allowed to come across the border to us. They're infected. So let's stay focused on what we're doing. So I want to start with showing you Nicola Sturgeon's pathway to this crisis. Take a look.
Ending the lockdown, the kingdom is not united. There will be no such easing of restrictions in Scotland and Wales. Scotland's First Minister, as you heard, Nicola Sturgeon, said the message there was still very much stay at home, describing Boris Johnson's new message as vague and imprecise. Well, our Scotland correspondent Kieran Jenkins is in Glasgow. Kieran.
Nicola Sturgeon was at pains to point out today that in Scotland, nothing has really changed. The only easing in Scotland is that you can now exercise more than once a day. And in her press briefing earlier, she stood in front of what used to be the UK-wide slogan, stay at home. And the First Minister said she would not play Russian roulette with COVID-19. But in a public address tonight, she did say that some restrictions would be relaxed in Scotland if the infections continued to fall. But she also said again, pointedly, stay at home.
We are asking you to stick with lockdown for a bit longer so that we can consolidate our progress, not jeopardise it. Except for essential work that can't be done at home, going out for food and medicine, or for exercise, please continue to stay at home.
Welcome back, guys. Now that's Scotland. Clear, precise, concise, and no, you can't mistake what they're saying, right? Now have a look at Boris's video. Take a look.
Engaging with the criticism that there just wasn't clarity about the strategy. But it's a obviously very simple message. It couldn't be starker. Stay at home. Now, it's when you come to take small steps back to normality, as we are now, that clearly the message becomes finer, more complicated. Things are pretty much as they have been, and they will be until we start to make further progress, driving down that R. Interesting there, the things are much as they have been. We haven't really moved at all to phase 2 of the COVID strategy. We've moved to something like phase 1A, but the slogan has changed. And I think that's one of the things that's confused people. And what the Prime Minister is trying to do with that change of slogan is nudge back to the workplace people who he thought would never have downed tools and stayed away. There was a question from another member of the public tonight who said, well, you want me to go back to the workplace, but what's going to happen to my kids? They don't happen to be the right year in primary school that might go back in June or might not. What happens for May? What happens for June? And the Prime Minister kind of said, well, if you explain that to your employer shouldn't be requiring you to come back to the workplace if you're in manufacturing, construction, one of these industries. 2 households might count as 1 household or a bubble, allowing some grandparents to see their grandchildren perhaps. Number 10 said the return to school for primary school children it hopes to start next month will not be compulsory. That an acknowledgement of the difficulty the government could have assuring parents that schools are safe when teachers' unions are extremely wary, and Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland don't feel ready to open their schools, or follow most of the other immediate relaxations announced by Boris Johnson.
So please be patient and please try not to get distracted by messages from other parts of the UK. All governments across the UK are trying to do the right thing.
She would rather this wasn't called the UK strategy paper, but it permits in England one-on-one meetings in the open air with someone not in your household, if socially distanced. You can now drive any distance to the countryside, say, or the seaside, but you can't overnight there, and you can't cross into Wales or Scotland. You can take unlimited exercise on your own. That rule change UK-wide. And in England, you can play singles, tennis and golf. But as with other new advice, the details.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is, we don't know that he is, well, his Sunday night coronavirus address to the nation was a hit in more ways than one. A lot of people watched, some 27.5 million people. That is higher viewership than some notable events, including the 2011 wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton, and the opening ceremony of the 2012 London Olympics. The address also morphed into a viral punchline. Comedian Matt Lucas poked fun at the seemingly contradictory messaging.
So we are saying, don't go to work, don't take public transport, go to work, don't go to work, stay indoors. If you can work from home, go to work, don't go to work. Go outside, don't go outside, and then we will or won't do something or other.
Now, guys, I mean, you can't be clearer from both videos who knows what they're talking about or who is really thinking of the people, in my opinion. Because if you're thinking about the people and you're seeing that the countries who did well, the countries who put a lid on this thing, the countries who put a cap on it, who behaved right from the very beginning, they now have a second wave. And yeah, we're sitting in England. A country that didn't start this race properly and yet wants to finish it even in a worse state. They want to finish this thing even in a more terrible way. This is asking for a second wave, guys. And my heart is going out to everybody, which could include me. I'm not stupid enough, like, do what Boris did when he first told everybody about the lockdown, and he was saying how some of you will lose family members before their time. And then he caught it first before anybody else. So I'm not going to sit and say my heart goes out to anyone who passes away, because that could be any one of us, guys, including myself. Including myself. So I just pray that we don't see a second wave. However, my intelligence, my common sense, and my informed state of mind tells me that we will get a second wave for sure. It's just when. I want to move over to the US now, guys. Now, the US is a whole nother diabolical situation, okay? Let me play you Obama's video to start with. Have a look at what Obama thinks of this whole crisis. Take a look.
Spoke out about this. I mean, it was a private phone call with supporters, but you know, we don't hear him talking much about the current administration. So it was notable, and he said that he believes that the response to the coronavirus from the Trump administration has been, quote, a chaotic disaster. I believe we have a portion of this phone call that we can play. Listen to this.
It's part of the reason why the response to this global crisis has been so anemic and spotty, and it would have been bad even with the best of governments. It has been an absolute chaotic disaster when that mindset of what's in it for me and to heck with everybody else, when that mindset is operationalized in our government.
Now, that's a real leader talking, people. He's telling you this is not a time to think what's in it for me. This is not a time to think my election. This is the time to think, oh my God, I've lost 84,000. I cannot afford to lose more. But that's not who they have in charge. Now, breaking news, guys. Just today, broke today, that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, who laid out a roadmap for Trump, for the administration to follow for unlock. It turns out that what Trump's people put out and what the CDC gave them are two different documents. Unbelievable. So the CDC says this is the way we should do this. They've taken that and they've said this is how we're going to do it, which are two completely different formats. One's run by science, which is the CDC, and the other is by right-wing, dyslexic decision-making. Take a look.
Learned the CDC guidelines for reopening that were shelved by the Trump administration were far stricter and more detailed than the White House version. CNN has a full copy now of a 68-page CDC report. CNN's Kristen Holmes live in Washington with the details. Kristen, what's inside?
Well, John, look, this is exactly what businesses, employers, individuals, states have been craving. It gives them the actual outline, the details on how to reopen and how to do it safely. And it's a very structured step-by-step process. So we'll go through some of the sections here. It talks about schools, setting desks 6 feet apart, talking about closing cafeterias, serving students within the classroom, trying to mitigate as much as possible. It also talks to employers about closing down break rooms altogether, having different shifts, as in an A shift and a B shift, just in case someone gets sick. And it talks a lot about testing. Now, some main differences here, and one that I thought was quite striking, was that of non-essential travel. In the White House plan, it says by phase 2 you can resume non-essential travel. In the CDC plan, it is much more careful. By phase 3, it says you can consider non-essential travel, but does nothing about allowing in all the restrictions being lifted. So this is something that we'll be keeping an eye on as it comes through. This is, again, something that was shelved by the White House, and something that we heard from CDC officials that said, if you look to our guidelines and if you go through each detail, you can see that most of the places, if not all of them, that are opening up are not ready to do so, John.
All right,
Welcome back, guys. Now, if that weren't bad enough, this thing's taking another dark turn again yesterday. Now, the state of Connecticut is a blue state, so it's a Obama party state, yeah, the Democrats. But the House, the state House of Representatives and stuff, yeah, like the Parliament of the House of the state, yeah, they got more Republicans, so more of Trump's voice people, yeah. Now, what's happened in the last 48 hours is that obviously the governor has got them on lockdown. It's a blue state. So all the blue states done the right thing. As soon as they knew what was going on in the state, boom, they took the right decisions. The red states stayed open. Now, what's happened since is that Wisconsin's governor, not Connecticut, my bad. Wisconsin's governor, sorry, that was Wisconsin appeal court, that's right. So Wisconsin's state governor has put the state on lockdown. The Republican House, which is the Trump people's house, have taken this case to the Supreme Court of the state, yeah? Now, I've been telling a couple of people to watch out on the judges that Trump's been putting in place. Trump's put over 250 judges in place. And those judges are people who shout down women's rights to abortion, that sort of thing. They're the ones who will shout down gay marriages, whether you believe it or not. I mean, these guys deserve whatever freedoms that a state can give them, yeah? These are the sort of people that if you're someone of color and you're on the death penalty, you're on the what's it called? You're on a death penalty sentence, basically. On death row, that's the word I'm searching for. On your death row, and you're trying to appeal, and many people believe that this is worth looking at. Well, the judges that Trump has put in place are the types of judges that won't even pay attention to that. You're going to your death. We don't care. The state's found you guilty, and you're going to die. They're the sole judges. All right. Now, the state appeal court has overturned the lockdown the governor put in place. And they overturned it with no policy. It's just, no, it's against human rights. Open them up. Right? Then you can see from the clips in my next video that once they did that, everyone came out. But only those who are like Trump would have came out. Yeah? So have a look at this video. People are sitting in a bar. They're sitting in pubs. So when he said unlock, when the Supreme Court did that, they didn't say, all right, so bars can't open. However, bars are exempt from it. Gyms are exempt from it. Blah, 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 blah. Then you said, we're overturning what you've done. So in Brazil, the right-wing president, Bolsonaro, didn't want to lock down. So the parliament locked it down. Bolsonaro took them to the appeal court, and the appeal court, sensible enough, maintained the lockdown. But then you have in Wisconsin, where the governor put them on lockdown, and you've got the right-wing Trump's people fighting the lockdown, and the Supreme Court, which has now got a lot of Trump judges in, maintained the unlock, removed the lockdown. So you've got right-wings everywhere behaving the same. They're not caring about human life. They are not caring one bit for human life. If you're right-wing and you say, let's open, we open. I'm right-wing like you, let's open. Okay? So now take a look at the appeal, what's happening in Wisconsin, guys.
Morning. The Trump administration is scrambling to contain a coronavirus outbreak, not just in the nation, but in the actual White House. The medical and political fallout already having a serious impact. A valet to the president, the vice president's press secretary, they both tested positive. 3 top health officials are in some form of self-quarantine. As of now, we're told that the vice president and 3 other members of the White House task force will not self-quarantine. CNN has learned that President Trump is worried that the fact that the virus has infiltrated 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue will undercut his claim that the pandemic is faded. The White House on the first state to have its stay-at-home order struck down in court. New Day continues right now.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court overturning the state's mandate to stay at home.
This will cause spikes across the state. There's no question about it.
Dr. Rick Bright is giving fair warning. Without more action, the year 2020 will be the darkest winter in modern history.
The idea of having treatments available to facilitate the re-entry of students would be a bit of a bridge too far.
To me, it's not an acceptable answer, especially when it comes to schools.
President Trump questioning the accuracy of the coronavirus death toll in the U.S.
The number of deaths we have right now is not the right number. It is higher.
This is New Day with Alison Camerata and John Berman.
Welcome to our viewers in the United States and all around the world. This is New Day, and breaking overnight, all statewide coronavirus restrictions in Wisconsin have been lifted after that state Supreme Court struck down the governor's stay-at-home order. Now, bars in the state quickly reopened, leading to scenes like this. You can see crowds enjoying their newfound freedom, but certainly not socially distancing, definitely not wearing masks. The governor likened the situation to the Wild West, saying that the state now has no plan and no protections for its people.
Now, guys, I want to show you where two countries can have exactly the same issue, but the leadership can make a huge difference. I'm going to put up a photo of the US response and the South Korean response, knowing that both countries got their first cases on the exact same day. Both countries had similar unemployment numbers, okay? Let me put that up and then I'll discuss. Take a look. Back. Now, guys, let me read out what you're looking at, what you just saw. So on January the 21st, United States and South Korea each got the first case, the very first confirmed case on the January the 21st. At that time, US unemployment rate was 3.6%, while South Korea's unemployment rate was 4%, okay? Let's roll on 6 weeks later to March the 3rd. At this point, America's only got 9 deaths. However, I believe they had more. They weren't testing. They weren't doing anything. South Korea had kicked in big time. So they'd found 38 deaths. America, 9 on the 3rd of March, yeah? Unemployment rate for America, they'd gone up to 4.4%, while unemployment in South Korea had come down to 3.8%. So from 4% to 3.8%, whereas America from 3.6% to 4.4%. Roll on to May the 11th, which is what, 4 days ago? 4 days ago? 3 days ago, today's the 14th. As of 3 days ago, America's death rate was now at 81.2 thousand. So 81,285 death. Unemployment rate 14.7. They'd gone up 10% of unemployment rate. Whereas on the same day, by May the 11th, 3 days ago, South Korea's death rate was only 250. 1/4 America has 81 plus thousand. 1/4. But look at their unemployment rate, 4%. So it started at 4% in January. It ends at 4% in May. Nothing shifted. They're still rolling strong. They're still balanced. Everything's still going smooth. The turbulence was smoothed out by leadership, guys. Guys, listen. Let me move on to Russia. Okay. Russia, I'm going to do a show next week sometime because it's Thursday today. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to squeeze that in tomorrow. But next week, I'll do another For Amigos show. I haven't featured Brazil today, but I do want to bring your attention to Russia and what they're having to deal with now. So take a look at Russia, guys. And then after this, I'm going to bring you some new hotspots that we need to pay attention to. Have a look, guys.
President Vladimir Putin, as well as the number of infected in Russia continues to spike. The curve looks very different for Russia compared to countries like France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. The president held a virtual meeting with officials where he said coronavirus restrictions need to be maintained or even stepped up in some places. Confirmed cases have gone up in Russia more than 10,000 for 4 days in a row. There are now nearly 166,000 total cases across Russia. Again, we are citing here numbers from Johns Hopkins University. We're comparing apples to apples here when it comes to numbers. That's why we're always going to the same source. And from one day to the next, we don't give you differently sourced figures. So,
welcome back, guys. Again, he's another one that I thought we're too great for this to affect us. Coronavirus, it won't cross my border. I am Russia. Well, guess what? This virus respects no one. No one. Okay? Now, I was talking about hotspots. A new hotspot's coming out in South America. But let me just say this, guys. They are newly discovered hotspots only because there isn't any testing going on. If they'd been testing, and bear in mind, all the big countries, it affected the big countries first. So UK, everybody, they're struggling to get PPEs and testing kits and stuff like that. While they are in the market buying up, countries like Ecuador, which is the new hotspot that I'm bringing to you guys, countries like Ecuador haven't got looking at all. They're not even worrying about testing. They're just waiting till it gets to them. What they don't know is it's already there and it's spreading daily. So the quicker you put yourself in the marketplace to get test kits or find your labs in your own country, buy one and see if they can make a replica of it. I showed you guys Senegal the other day. Senegal are using the same test kit that they use to test for Ebola. And they see that it's working. One little lab testing everybody in the community for free, right? So Ecuador, you can do the same. Now, have a look at, their second largest city is a city called Guayaquil, okay, in Ecuador. So have a look, guys. This is what's going on. And this is, let me warn you guys, this video is pretty distressing. Take a look.
Is so significant in this whole coronavirus pandemic is that it's Ecuador's second largest city, and it has lived through one of the most horrific local outbreaks of the coronavirus anywhere in the world. A CNN analysis shows the virus's death toll in Guayaquil could be 17 times higher than official data suggests, and that staggering death toll has ravaged a city roughly the size of Chicago. CNN's Matt Rivers spoke to one young man who tells us first he lost his father to the disease, and then the morgue lost his remains. And now a strong warning to our viewers. The video we're about to show you is graphic and difficult to watch, but we choose to air it because it is the stark reality of this outbreak in Guayaquil. Here's Matt Rivers with the story.
These are bodies piled in open shipping containers outside a hospital in Guayaquil, Ecuador, the country's second largest city. The person who shot this video shared it with CNN. And if just watching the video is difficult, imagine going through those containers in person looking for your dad's body. That's what Arturo Ramos says he had to do.
One in the top of each other, one crushing each other. It's really devastating.
On March 31st, his dad, Flavio, couldn't breathe after being turned away at 10 different hospitals because they were full. Ramos said his dad was finally admitted at the 11th. Flavio was placed in a wheelchair like this one and taken to a room with no bed. There were 2 dead bodies already inside.
It's like a war zone. It's like a war zone. There's a lot of people dying and nobody's taking care of it.
Flavio died the next day. On his death certificate, it says he died of acute respiratory failure, likely due to COVID-19. But like so many others in Guayaquil, Flavio was never tested because the healthcare system has all but collapsed. The hospital wouldn't comment on Flavio's case, but CNN has spoken to multiple doctors who say in March and April, hospitals citywide buckled under the weight of the pandemic. Their facilities were overwhelmed almost immediately after the outbreak began, doomed by a lack of staff and supplies. The 3 doctors we spoke to suggested dozens of patients simply died in their cars outside of hospitals awaiting treatment. In this video obtained by CNN, a man dead in his car was pulled out and laid in a hospital parking lot by his family, the group simply unsure what to do next. The federal government has apologized for its pandemic response and, stating the obvious, said they weren't ready for an outbreak with a staggering death toll. In March and April combined, in 2018 and 2019, an average 2,799 people died in Guayaquil. Experts say that's about what you'd expect. But this year, that number spiked to at least 12,350. Of those, the government has confirmed just 533 were due to COVID-19. So what explains the fact that thousands more died over the same 2-month period this year?
There's no doubt that the additional thousands and thousands of deaths are COVID-related.
Totally. For me, are COVID, unless proven otherwise.
3 epidemiologists told CNN Guayaquil's actual COVID-19 related death toll could be higher than 9,000. The government has acknowledged the virus death toll is far higher than what they officially report, but say its lack of ability to test more means we'll never know the exact figure. When Arturo Ramos went to collect his father's remains, hospital officials couldn't find them. He says he had to search on his own, both in the morgue and in these shipping containers. And after 5 days of looking through hundreds of bodies, Ramos says he never found his dad.
I couldn't go anymore. Mentally, I was like 100%.
The government didn't respond when asked about Flavio Ramos or the shipping containers, but say many families are still missing dead loved ones. Last month, the Attorney General launched an investigation into the mismanagement of remains at hospital morgues, and anyone can go to this government website and type in the deceased name to see if there's any news. More than a month after he died, a search for Flavio Ramos ends in no results found. Arturo grieves for his dad alone these days. He's separated from his family because last week he tested positive for coronavirus.
Welcome back. That's pretty shocking and that's pretty sad. And when I see a video like that, what really gets to me is the unevenness of the world. Crises like these really show up the unevenness of the world and how world leaders from the richer countries, why are you comfortable seeing that there are people that are suffering like that? Why do you want them to pay back all these debts from how many hundreds of years ago? Why not give a debt relief program right now from off the back of this for these poorer countries so they can elevate their healthcare systems, elevate their infrastructure to come up to the levels that they can look after themselves in this situation? Now, if my vision for a union of black nations comes together in the future, that's the type of muscle that the black countries need to have to compete against the European Union, against China, against India, against the USA. England will be pushed to the side because England's going to be little England, but a union of black nations, if that gets formed, you're on the same and you have the same resources and build it up properly. You will have the same pulling power, the same buying power as the European Union. There will be over 1 billion people in one union. Who ain't going to want to listen to you? So these are the things that really show up in these times of crisis. Guys, take a look at South Africa, which is another one that's coming up. Okay, guys, so these are places we'll be watching for you on this platform and keeping you posted on what's going on. Whoever's got, if you got family in Ecuador, you got family in South Africa or any of those hotspots, stay tuned to my channel, subscribe, share with your friends, and join me on Facebook and on Instagram. Now, guys, I want to finish off with two videos. The last one will be how Chinese kids are going back to school. If you know Boris Johnson, send him this video. I know his people are watching because his people scan all the internet and everything. And I'm not praising him and bowing to him. I know they've probably come across my video, and that's great. So if he's watching, this last video at the end, not this one I'm showing next. Now what I'm going to draw your attention to in a second is what's happening with children. However, my last video is going to be about the Chinese and how their kids are going back to school. Now, my second to last video is to draw your attention to something called the Multisystem Inflammatory Syndrome in children. So it's called the Multisystem Inflammatory Syndrome in children. It's a new morphing. It's morphed in children in Europe and America. The UK sent an alert, but you notice how they haven't made it very public. They've picked it up in America and they're running with it because they've seen a case there, a couple of cases there as well. But basically the crux of it is this, right? If you got young children, you need to look out for certain other symptoms. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, guys, I brought you guys the story of how this is affecting black people. Is showing in a different way. I put the nurse on there who was advising all black men, especially, to pay attention to this. They get lethargic. They get it's not so much the what's it called? It's not so much the fever and stuff like that, but it's showing a different symptom in black men. I brought that to you guys. Now this is about children. It's showing a different type of symptom in children, and that symptom is called multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children. So guys, have a look at this and please share with if you know any mums and dads who've got young children up to 12, there's a 12-year-old girl in that video. I've got 9-year-old. So in that range of, say, between toddlers and about 12, 13, 14, maybe even, pay attention for symptoms such as this. Take a look, guys.
Doctors are warning that there will be more cases of this strange and frightening new inflammatory syndrome in kids that appears to be related to coronavirus. It causes symptoms ranging from very mild, cracked lips, all the way up to cardiac arrest. Let's bring in Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta with what we know about this rare but potentially deadly condition. So what have you learned, Sanjay?
Yeah, it is rare, thankfully, still, Allison, and I'll emphasize that point a couple times. About the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, is working on a case definition right now. There was an alert about this that went out to hospitals in the UK a couple of weeks ago, over a weekend, Allison, and we're going to see a similar alert here, basically telling hospitals around the country to be on the lookout for what you're about to see here.
My stomach started to hurt pretty bad, and it felt like my legs were kind of big and weak, and I was pretty tired.
She started having blue lips and her extremities were cold. So that's when it was like, this is not a normal flu.
Sean Daly is Juliet's dad. Did you think that this might be a COVID or a coronavirus?
My wife thought it was a possibility. She called to try to see if she could get tested. She didn't meet the criteria. She was more or less a healthy 12-year-old.
By that evening, Juliet was nearly dead.
They had me leave the room to intubate her, so they put her under anesthesia, and then she went into cardiac arrest for a little less than 2 minutes. They had to perform CPR.
What was her condition when you first saw Juliet?
She was about as close to death as you can get.
Dr. Jake Kleinmahan is a pediatric cardiologist at Oxnard Hospital for Children in New Orleans.
Her heart was barely squeezing. She was going into kidney failure, liver failure, intubated emergently, and put on a ventilator.
It's hard to believe we are talking about this same beautiful little girl. But it's also hard to believe that all of this was possibly related to COVID-19, a disease that wasn't really supposed to severely affect kids. Now, it even has a name. It's called Multisystem Inflammatory Syndrome in children.
There's a lot of
cells and cell signaling in the body that is just going crazy. And what that's doing is it's creating a lot of inflammation that's affecting the heart, the liver, the kidney, and really all the cells of the body.
It's been described as a Kawasaki-like disease. That's another inflammatory disease most commonly diagnosed in children. Awful rashes, a strawberry-appearing tongue, and destructive inflammation. But this is also different. There are so many questions, like why now? Why months into this pandemic are we first seeing this? And why is it so devastating to children in the United States and Europe?
And now, guys, it's important that we share information, okay? Because it's the only way we alert another parent, someone else who missed the video, someone else who missed the news clip, someone else who missed the story. It's when we share it, important stuff like this, we inform those who missed those, yeah? So, guys, I'm coming to the end of today's video now. And I just want to show you guys a clip of how China is letting the kids back to school. Take a look at this and ask yourselves, is my government doing this?
我们走着走着，花就开了，在幸福里感受，什么都别说，所有美好的时光渐渐地飘落，一起看四季变换，爱你如从。我们走着走着，花就开了，在清风秋月里望眼着生活，爱你就像一杯茶，情似一团火，平平淡淡和你守着那执着。
Welcome back. Do you see what I'm talking about? I told you guys the other day, my video 2 days ago, how New York stopped its metro network for the first time in its history, hundreds of years history, to clean down each and every train on the network. We've done nothing of the sort. We haven't cleaned our streets. I saw clips of little countries. India done the same. I've seen clips of Kenya and little countries spraying their streets. We haven't done any of that. I've seen advice from all the other countries saying wear masks. Over here, we're saying wear face coverings. Masks don't protect you. If everybody wears a mask, then the NHS will be without masks. Well, my question is, why can't everybody have masks as well as the NHS? Why can Germany do it? Why can Italy do it? Why can New Zealand do it? Why can China do it? South Korea do it? Why can everybody else do it other than us? Because we have an NHS, because our NHS is special, so we don't wear masks so they can wear masks. My video I brought you guys 2 days ago, they were giving masks, 3 masks per day for companies that have opened up in Germany and France. 3 masks a day. So not like you're buying them, they're giving it to you. Over here, we opened up without issuing companies with masks so they can give to employees, so we can lock down a second wave. So everything we're doing, guys, is leading to a second wave. And you heard it here first, unfortunately, as it is. So, guys, without more to bring you right now, I'm going to end the show with my goodbye. Remember not to share fake news, share real stuff, share stuff that can help people save lives, not sharing stuff that make people think they're invincible to this thing and that it doesn't affect them and that is somewhere else, it's on someone else. Stop all that, kill it dead at your phone, and I'll see you back here tomorrow, Friday, for my last video of the week. Take care, have a fantastic day, bye-bye.